For centuries they were locked, some sealed with stone, others with metal, a few hidden behind false walls, underground vaults, forgotten temples, and government facilities. Chambers that no one was meant to open, until someone did, and what they found inside would rewrite everything we thought we knew about history, power, and death. The first was in India, Vault B of the Padmanabhaswamy Temple, a chamber so mysterious it was said to be cursed, guarded by serpents, protected by mantras older than language. For decades, treasure hunters, scholars, and officials tried to open it, but the doors wouldn't budge, not because they were physically unmovable, but because they were watched. Every priest warned, do not touch it, do not disturb it. The seal is not metal, it is spiritual. In 2016, a team of researchers quietly attempted to breach the vault under controlled conditions. They never made it past the first gate. Every instrument failed. Cameras malfunctioned. One team member collapsed. Another began speaking in a language no one recognized. The attempt was stopped. The chamber remains sealed to this day. But it was not the only one. In a desert tomb in Saqqara, Egypt, archaeologists discovered a limestone burial chamber unlike any they had ever seen. It was completely untouched. Zero air leakage. No signs of entry for over 4,000 years. The sarcophagus inside was carved from a single piece of obsidian black stone. It had no seams, no handles, no inscriptions. When it was finally lifted, using custom-engineered pulleys brought in from Europe, it revealed nothing. No body, no gold, only a thin layer of dust resting atop a single artifact, a sphere, perfect, metallic, cold to the touch even in the desert heat. It hummed when held. Scientists ran tests. No known element matched its surface, no fingerprint would stay on it. And the strangest part, every person who handled it reported the same dream that night: a city covered in ash, and a woman whispering in a language they'd never heard, but understood perfectly. The sphere was removed, placed in a secure facility. A month later, the facility caught fire. The sphere was never recovered. Then came the chamber beneath the Vatican. Hidden beneath layers of catacombs, one corridor had been sealed since the 1500s. Vatican records called it Archivum Umbra, the Archive of Shadows. It was locked behind an iron gate, with 7 rotating locks, each requiring a different seal of the papal order. In 2021, a quiet internal operation, never confirmed publicly, granted access to the chamber. What they found wasn't scripture. It was a body, mummified, sitting upright, its eyes stitched open with golden thread, in front of it a scroll, written in code. Latin, yes, but layered over what experts identified as a pre-Roman alphabet never before documented. The translation, partially decrypted, said this: "He will return, not from earth, not from heaven, beneath us, where no light has ever touched." We locked the door, but the door remembers. The scroll ended there. No signature, no record of who wrote it, but the date on the casing was burned in March 13, 1134. No plague happened that year, no war, no disaster, but over 4,000 people disappeared in southern Europe that month. No bodies were ever found. Coincidence? Maybe. But then came the chamber in Nevada, deep beneath a decommissioned military base, hidden in what was once thought to be a weapons vault. Engineers found a welded compartment during demolition. The metal wasn't standard. It registered no magnetic signature. The chamber wasn't on any blueprint. It had no doors, only a small, handprint-sized indentation on the surface. When a worker touched it, the metal shifted, melted, and opened. Inside, rows of human-sized pods, each one held a figure perfectly preserved. But their features weren't human, not entirely. Long limbs, translucent skin, and eyes that reflected light like mirrors. The bodies were moved, quarantined. The project shut down, but not before one camera caught something. One of the pods, just briefly, released a breath. Whatever was sealed down there wasn't dead, and we were never supposed to find it. In Turkey, near the ancient city of Derinkuyu, an already famous underground city revealed something no one expected. For years, tourists walked its tunnels, narrow staircases, small rooms carved deep into volcanic rock. But behind one collapsed wall, engineers clearing debris discovered a sealed stone door, Unlike any other found in the complex, it had no hinges, no carvings. Only a single phrase etched in ancient Phrygian, buried what could not die. It took months to open. When they did, the air hissed. Stale, old, but breathable. Inside was a chamber untouched by time, circular, smooth, and silent. The walls had no soot marks, no chiseled grooves, nothing that suggested human tools. And in the center sat a coffin made of petrified wood, its surface covered in deep scratch marks. From the inside, when opened, the coffin was empty. But the lid was heavier than the base, as if something had fused to it. On the inside of the lid, scorched into the grain, were 5 words burned in multiple languages: Greek, Sanskrit, Latin, and Akkadian. All translated the same message: still beneath, still waiting, still hungry. The chamber was resealed, the wall rebuilt, the report lost. In Romania, deep in the Bucegi Mountains, came another discovery. Satellite ground penetrating radar picked up a geometric anomaly buried beneath the limestone. A perfect triangle chamber carved hundreds of feet below the surface. It was only accessible by vertical descent. When teams broke through, they expected ice, fossils, maybe artifacts. They found a throne, black, carved from obsidian like rock. It gave off heat despite the freezing temperature. On the floor before it was a map, not of Romania, not of Earth, but of star systems. Some known, others still undiscovered. One particular symbol stood out. It was etched not in stone, but in something living. A membrane that pulsed like skin, even though it was fused to the rock. The symbol glowed faintly as the team approached. Instruments failed. Batteries drained. One researcher began convulsing. Another heard a voice that said, "Do not return again. This seat is not empty." The chamber collapsed days later in a landslide. Officially, it was labeled a seismic fault. Then came the chamber beneath an abandoned insane asylum in West Virginia. Rumors had long persisted of a black ward, sealed shut after the asylum was closed in 1952. Locals claimed screams still echoed from the lower halls. Urban explorers laughed it off, until one group entered through a tunnel shaft and found a bolted iron door untouched for over 70 years. Inside was not a cell. It was a chapel, black crosses, burnt candles, scratched messages on the walls, OITATHES, IT smells, IT my TS, and in the far corner, a padded chair with leather restraints and deep claw marks in the floor leading toward it, as if something had been pulled back in. There were no records of who or what had been kept in that chamber. No patient name. No staff assignment, but an old, dust-covered recorder was found on a table. Only one line played before it snapped. "It's not the voices we fear, it's the silence between them." To this day, no historian, no priest, no scientist has been able to explain what was inside these chambers. Only that they were sealed for a reason, and when we opened them, something changed. Not just in the world, but in us. In the mountains of Peru, hidden deep within the mist forests above Machu Picchu, a drone survey uncovered what appeared to be an unnatural slope. Too smooth, too perfectly angled to be the result of erosion. When local archaeologists arrived, they discovered a landslide had revealed part of a stone wall, one not made by the Inca, but by something older. A hidden entrance was found. The doorway was narrow and covered in thick vines, with a carved emblem that didn't match any known Andean language. It was circular, jagged, and surrounded by 13 dots. Tribal elders refused to go near it. They whispered one word only, Cacique del Humo, the chief of smoke. When the chamber was entered, it was completely empty. No relics, no bones, only ash. Piled in the center of the room, perfectly circular, like something had stood there and burned. But there were no scorch marks on the walls. No signs of fire. Only one thing left behind, a footprint in the ash, large, clawed, and pressed into the stone. Lab tests showed the stone had softened and re-solidified under extreme heat, as if melted by something standing on it. What could do that? No one ever found out. The chamber was sealed again. Quietly. No press release. No record. Just a warning carved into the outer wall before the entrance was covered. It left once. it may return. Thousands of miles away in northern China, another sealed chamber was opened, but this one was not ancient. It was under a former Cold War-era bunker, one decommissioned decades ago. The chamber was discovered accidentally by construction workers preparing to repurpose the facility. A single, narrow hallway led to a steel hatch, welded shut from the outside. It took 6 hours of cutting to get through. Inside were no lights, no windows, no furniture, only hundreds of journals, stacked floor to ceiling, each handwritten by someone never identified. Each journal opened with the same sentence. Day 1, the whisper came again. The writings described hallucinations, time loss, and visions of people who were never there. Some dressed in ancient clothes, others in uniforms not yet invented. The final entry, dated August 14, 1981, said simply, "I was the last one. The door is sealed. But they are inside with me now." There was no body, no signature. But the last page of the journal was soaked in blood. Then came the final known sealed chamber, opened not by archaeologists or governments but by accident. In Antarctica, under an abandoned Soviet weather station, a crew drilling for ice core samples broke through a hollow space. Instruments registered warmth beneath the ice. The space shouldn't have existed. Inside, they found a room carved into the permafrost, perfectly round, lit by an unknown source, and on every inch of the wall, scratched by hand, was the same message over and over again, "It-cam befa or taichi ice." The crew reported the finding. A military plane arrived within 48 hours. They were told to leave. No report was ever released. But a single photo survived, snuck out by a technician before his equipment was confiscated. The image shows the chamber's wall, glowing faintly with symbols not of human origin. The image was digitally analyzed. The symbols matched no known language, except one, carved in the obsidian throne found beneath the Busigi Mountains. The same symbol, the same shape, the same warning. These chambers were not built to hold treasure. They were built to hold something else, something ancient, something buried, something watching. In 1999, a team of underwater engineers mapping the floor of the Baltic Sea discovered a sonar anomaly, perfectly circular, over 200 feet in diameter, and raised nearly 12 feet above the seafloor. At first, they believed it was a rock formation or perhaps the remnants of an old sunken ship. But when divers reached it, what they found was not natural, and not man-made either. It was a chamber, or what remained of one. The surface was metallic but covered in organic growth, barnacles, algae, sea worms. Yet, underneath the decay, the divers found lines, etched grooves forming symbols too regular to be geological. A central hatch was visible. The team attempted to pry it open, but every tool failed. Then, without warning, the water temperature dropped sharply. Communication devices began to fail. One diver's oxygen levels inexplicably plummeted. He surfaced panicked, shouting that something is moving inside. A week later, the entire site was restricted, no further dives allowed. The project was renamed, the report classified, the footage lost at sea. In Eastern Europe, an old castle in the Carpathians was undergoing renovation when workers stumbled upon a collapsed passage behind a stone fireplace. At the end was a door made of bone, white stone, sealed with melted iron. Carvings on the edges depicted creatures, not quite human, crouching in prayer, or perhaps in fear. When opened, the air that rushed out was warm, as if the chamber had never cooled from the fire that once burned inside. Inside were no artifacts, no gold, no burial. Only a well, deep, black and silent. Lowering a camera into it showed smooth, spiral grooves carved downward into the stone. At 120 meters the camera feed cut out, black screen, no signal. The audio, however, kept recording. What it captured was a sound like breathing. Slow, rhythmic, not mechanical, alive. The workers sealed the chamber within 24 hours. They left the castle unfinished. No explanation was ever provided. Far north, in Greenland, a melting glacier revealed an entrance to what appeared to be an ancient vault, carved directly into the ice. Scientists approached cautiously. Inside, perfectly preserved, were wooden crates wrapped in leather, marked with symbols resembling Norse runes, but twisted, distorted. When opened, the crates contained nothing but ash, and one item in the final box, a severed hand, petrified, its fingers curved into a gesture no one could identify. It was not human, too long, too many joints. And yet, it was wearing a ring. The metal was unknown. The gem inside was still warm to the touch. A geologist who handled the ring disappeared from the site days later. His tent was found torn open, his boots and clothes left behind. His footprints led away into the snow, toward the glacier. But they never returned. The other scientists abandoned the site. The glacier refroze, the coordinates erased from public maps. And in the archived notes of one of the surviving researchers, a final entry. These chambers are not random. They are placed, measured, guarded. Open one and the others feel it, wherever they are, beneath temples, inside mountains, beneath oceans or behind walls. We now know this: they were sealed not because of what they hid, but because of what they connect, and opening them might be unlocking more than a door. In 2003, deep beneath a collapsed monastery in southern France, a seismic scan revealed a void, oval-shaped, lined with dense material. The chamber was buried under 60 feet of earth and rubble, sealed off since the Black Death swept through the region centuries ago. It took archaeologists 2 years to reach it. What they found inside defied every expectation. The chamber walls were coated in a black lacquer, reflective like obsidian but cold and porous to the touch. Lining the walls were shelves, and on each shelf sat a single jar, sealed with wax and etched with dates. Each one corresponded with a historical disaster: plagues, city fires, earthquakes. But inside the jars wasn't ash or bone, it was air, compressed, preserved, contained. When opened, the air released was warm, fragrant, familiar, yet none of the scientists could place it. A test showed a microscopic particle count inconsistent with normal atmospheric conditions. One jar, marked November 1, 1755, emitted a low hum when unsealed. Within minutes of exposure, power tools in the chamber began to fail. Digital watches reset. A camera exploded. That date matched the Lisbon earthquake, one of the deadliest in human history. It was as if the chamber had captured the moment of destruction itself. One researcher inhaled directly above the open jar. He collapsed within seconds, eyes wide, pupils dilated. When he regained consciousness, he whispered only one sentence before lapsing into a coma. They were stored, not for safety, for use. The chamber was resealed. The remaining jars, seized. The coma patient never woke up. His final EEG readings showed brainwave activity outside human frequency range. In Chile, an old mining tunnel, long thought abandoned, revealed a doorway beneath the lowest shaft. Behind it, a spiral staircase leading to a copper-lined room. Perfect acoustics, perfect geometry. In the center stood a metal pyramid, floating 1 inch above the ground. No wires, no supports. It was humming. Instruments couldn't get close. Magnetometers spun. Watches stopped. Fluorescent lights burst from above. But more chilling than its impossible levitation was what was engraved at its base. "Wa built this when the sky burned. We buried it when the stars returned. You were not supposed to come back." One scientist touched it. She vanished. Right there, in front of 4 witnesses. The pyramid clanged to the ground. The humming stopped. She was never found, not a trace, not a scream, not even a shadow. But her voice appeared on a dormant radio transmitter 3 days later, on a frequency unused for decades. Her words were scrambled but clear: "Don't open another. It's a signal. You're waking them." These chambers, whether beneath stone, beneath ice, beneath skin and steel, they were never isolated. They are connected. Each one opens a fracture. And the more we open, the louder the response becomes. In 2020, a sinkhole opened in the middle of a remote Siberian forest. No known seismic activity, no warning. Locals claimed the area had always felt strange. Animals avoided it. Snow never stayed frozen. When scientists arrived, they found a tunnel descending at a perfect 45-degree angle. Not natural. At the end of the shaft, a sealed iron hatch, untouched by rust. Embedded into its surface was a handprint. 3 fingers, elongated, fused to the metal like it had melted into place long ago. They opened it anyway. Inside was a chamber shaped like an inverted dome, its walls lined with circular carvings glowing faintly in the dark. The team brought in scanning equipment. As soon as they stepped inside, all communications cut off. Emergency teams were sent in after 2 hours. They found the chamber empty. No equipment, no people, no footprints leaving the site. But one thing was left behind, etched freshly into the stone floor: sex entered. One will return. We have shown them. Now they will show you. The project was shut down. The official explanation: geothermal collapse. But geologists weren't allowed to see the site. No photos leaked. The forest was burned and reforested within the year. Far south, in the jungles of the Congo, explorers uncovered an overgrown ziggurat unlike anything known in African architecture. Inside, a stone hallway that descended below the water table, dry, somehow untouched by rot. At the bottom, a sealed stone room, perfectly round, the floor inlaid with a world map that didn't match our current continents. It matched Earth millennia ago. One location glowed faintly on the map, beneath the current Indian Ocean. That same black zone where MH370 vanished. That same place where radar fails. That same empty space other sealed chamber AI systems had once flagged as non-random. On the wall, a line written in a dialect that predated Sumerian. The door was closed. The sky turned quiet, but the deep never forgets. The researchers who discovered it. Half went missing. The others returned, but wouldn't speak. All retired from the field, every one of them. In each chamber, whether carved in stone, hidden by governments, or buried by time, there are repeating details: the symbol of interlocking circles, the presence of heat where there should be cold, the disappearance of time, measured not in minutes, but in memories. Most disturbing is what one AI reconstructed from fractured recordings taken from multiple chambers around the world. When layered, filtered, and slowed down, they form a single phrase, spoken in a voice no human could produce. You've opened the 6th. One more, and we wake. Who, has never been confirmed. But if the chambers were warnings, we didn't listen. And if they are locks, one by one. In April 2024, a group of deep-sea researchers operating off the Mariana Trench detected rhythmic vibrations unlike anything recorded before. Too structured to be seismic, too low frequency to be marine life. The signal pulsed every 37 minutes, echoing upward from a depth beyond known pressure survival thresholds. A robotic submersible was sent down. It never returned. Its last transmission was a corrupted 2-second video, blurry, colorless, mostly static. But in the final frame, analysts identified the faint silhouette of a massive circular door embedded into the trench wall, glowing with a dim, pulsing light. 2 days later, the signal stopped, permanently. But a matching vibration was then detected in the Himalayas, deep within a mountain pass long closed to the public. The pattern was identical. A seismic hum, matching frequency, duration, and pulse interval. It wasn't just a chamber anymore, it was a network. And now, it was speaking to itself. Then came the 7th. In northern Iran, during construction of a dam project, engineers drilled into a rock shelf only to discover it was hollow. Behind it, a perfectly preserved chamber, sealed in copper, untouched by oxidation. The team entered with full hazmat gear. Inside, a single mirror, taller than any man, with no reflection. The surface was not glass, it was fluid, but contained black. Silent still, until one researcher leaned too close. His face didn't reflect. Instead, the surface rippled, and a second face appeared, identical but grinning. He screamed and collapsed. The team extracted him immediately. He was alive, but changed. He no longer recognized his family. He spoke in reverse during sleep. His blood type had changed. His fingerprint scan failed every database. On the mirror's base, an inscription appeared days later, carved from the inside out. 7th unlocked. The Watchers remember. The threshold weakens. All data was seized. The site was reburied. No public disclosure was made. But whistleblower footage leaked 2 seconds of the mirror's surface at timestamp Hoderd 1. Dozens of hands press against the inside of the glass, some small, some long, some unlike anything ever seen. Then it goes black. Across the globe, other chambers began responding, stone symbols glowing again, doors vibrating, audio pulses sensing. The AI, reinstated in secret, gave its final report. 7 seals, 7 openings, 7th unlocked. Final sequence initiated, then it shut itself down, not by error, by choice. And now, all that remains is silence. For now. Because something is waking up, something we were never meant to greet. And the last chamber, it's still out there, waiting for someone curious enough to open it. In April 2024, a group of deep-sea researchers operating off the Mariana Trench detected rhythmic vibrations unlike anything recorded before. Too structured to be seismic, too low frequency to be marine life. The signal pulsed every 37 minutes, echoing upward from a depth beyond known pressure survival thresholds. A robotic submersible was sent down. It never returned. Its last transmission was a corrupted 2-second video, blurry, colorless, mostly static. But in the final frame, analysts identified the faint silhouette of a massive circular door embedded into the trench wall, glowing with a dim, pulsing light. 2 days later, the signal stopped permanently. But a matching vibration was then detected in the Himalayas, deep within a mountain pass long closed to the public. The pattern was identical, a seismic hum, matching frequency, duration, and pulse interval. It wasn't just a chamber anymore. It was a network, and now it was speaking to itself. Then came the 7th. In northern Iran, during construction of a dam project, engineers drilled into a rock shelf only to discover it was hollow. Behind it, a perfectly preserved chamber, sealed in copper, untouched by oxidation. The team entered with full hazmat gear. Inside, a single mirror, taller than any man, with no reflection. The surface was not glass, it was fluid but contained black, silent, still. Until one researcher leaned too close, his face didn't reflect. Instead, the surface rippled, and a second face appeared, identical but grinning. He screamed and collapsed. The team extracted him immediately. He was alive, but changed. He no longer recognized his family. He spoke in reverse during sleep. His blood type had changed. His fingerprint scan failed every database. On the mirror's base, an inscription appeared days later, carved from the inside out. 7th unlocked. The Watchers remember. The threshold weakens. All data was seized.